Fatiha. Selamun Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Ve salatu ve selamu ala Resulü Muhammedin seyyidil evvelin ve ahirin. Meded ya Resulü, meded ya Sadat, ashab-ı Resul, meded ya Reşan, destur. Ve inşallah fazlası, inşallah Hakkani, tarikatuna, as-sahaba vel hayru fil cemiyye. Allah'a şükür, Şevval ayı ağır aydır.
We are now still in the month of Shawwal. The month of Shawwal is a heavy month.
Mübarek Ramazan'la Hac ayları arasında
The month of Shawwal comes in after the holy month of Ramadan, and it is before the month of Hajj.
ay oluyor. Şimdi de inşallah yarın öbürsü gün Zülkade.
And tomorrow or the other day, the month of Shawwal will end and the month of Dhul Qa'dah will have begun.
Ayı hacılar başlarlar haca yolculuklarını.
And it is during the month of Dhul Qa'dah that the pilgrims will start their journey for the Hajj.
Bu insanlar için Allah Azze ve Celle'nin bir lütfu, mucizesi olarak
To perform the Hajj, the pilgrimage, is a divine favor by Allah Almighty, and it is a miracle.
Allah Azze ve Celle'nin dediği şeyler insanın yaptığı, kendi kafalarına göre yaptığının arasında tabi fark, yani mukayese olacak değil.
The immense blessings and favors of Allah Almighty's gifts are beyond comprehension, and what Allah Almighty gives cannot be compared to what people do or what people come up with.
Mukayesede bir şey olmaz. Allah Azze ve Celle'nin tayin ettiği insanlara onların faydası için, onların iyiliği içindir.
Everything Allah Almighty gave to humankind and all those things Allah Almighty ordered and instructed humankind to do are for the benefit and for the blessing of people.
Hac da onlardan birisidir.
Likewise, to perform Hajj is also an order by Allah Almighty, and it is to the benefit of humanity.
İnsanın malı sıhhat yerindeyse onu yapması farzdır.
If a person has the means, has the wealth and the health to perform Hajj, then that person is obligated to perform the Hajj.
Yani İslam'ın şartlarından birisidir.
To perform the Hajj is one of the requirements of Islam.
Onu yapmayan eksik etmiş olur.
And those who do not perform the Hajj will not have fulfilled the requirements of Islam.
İslam'ın şartlarının birincisi kelime şehadet.
First and foremost, one has to say the kalima shahada, that is the requirement of Islam.
İkinci namaz.
Second, one has to pray 5 times a day.
Üçüncü oruç, zekat.
Then one has to fast during the month of Ramadan. One has to give zakah.
Hac. Yani hepsini, ötekilerini yapabilirler ama
Generally, Muslims fulfill the first 4 requirements.
Hac meselesi çoğu insan onu fazla ehemmiyet vermiyor.
However, when it comes to Hajj, people don't attach importance to it.
Verse de maniler çok şimdi.
And those who attach importance to the Hajj are faced with many obstacles.
Hemen hacca gideyim dese, parası olsa şey olsa gene başka bir hala maniler var.
Still today, if people may have the health, if people may have the wealth and the means to perform the Hajj, yet they cannot just go and perform the Hajj. There are many obstacles which prevent them from doing so.
Onu yapamıyor. Yapamayan o niyet ettikten sonra Allah Azze ve Celle niyetini kabul eder.
But if you intend to make the Hajj and if you take the measures in order to perform the Hajj, but the reason why you cannot perform the Hajj are those obstacles which you cannot influence, then Allah Almighty still will reward you according to that intention.
Ama yok hiç aklına geçirmeyenler o vakit onlar ahirette pişman olur.
But there are people who don't even think about performing the Hajj, and those who don't even consider to do the Hajj, they will regret that in the hereafter.
Keşke yapsaydık.
And they will wish in the hereafter if only we had performed the Hajj.
Tabii bedel olarak hacılar yapılabiliyordu.
And there's also the possibility to perform the Hajj on someone else's behalf.
O sevabın hacca mukarene olarak, mukayese olarak da yani bin mi, 10.000'de 1.000, 100.000'de 1 mi o fazilet sevap gelir insana, o başka mesele.
But if somebody else performs the Hajj on your behalf, then the blessings and the favors will only be 1 in 1,000, maybe 1 in 10,000, or maybe 1 in 100,000, compared to actually having performed the Hajj yourself.
Ama onun için tabii hiç olmazsa o günahtan kurtulmuş olur.
But still, if it's better, but having someone else perform the Hajj for you on your behalf as a proxy will still at least save you from the sin of not having performed the Hajj.
O yani malı olup da sıhhat yerinde olup da gitmeyen için olur.
And this is a means for someone who has the means and the health and has not performed the Hajj. As a last resort, he may have somebody else have performed the Hajj on his behalf in order to save himself from the sin of not having performed the Hajj.
Başkaları için fakirdi, ya hastaydı, gidemedi. Onun yerine yapılan hac makbul olur. O vakit aynı şey gibi olur. Yani gidemeyen mal olmayınca o vakit farz düşmüş olur.
And people may also perform the Hajj on somebody else's behalf if the other persons may not have the means to perform the Hajj, or if they don't have the health or the wealth to perform the Hajj, then they may have somebody else perform the Hajj on their behalf. But nevertheless, the Hajj is an obligation which needs to be performed based on the condition that one has the health and the wealth in order to do so. But if one lacks the means and is not in a healthy state, or does not have the financial means to perform the Hajj, then that person does not have that obligation.
O farz olmadıktan sonra da bir sakıncası yok.
And if one does not fulfill the conditions to perform the Hajj, and if that person, without fulfilling those conditions, does not perform the Hajj, then that person will not be held responsible.
Yani insan için bir günahı olmuyor.
If a person does not fulfill the conditions in order to perform the Hajj, having the wealth and the health to do so, then if that person does not perform the Hajj because he does not meet the requirements and does not have the means, then it will not be a sin for that person.
Allah Azze ve Celle ma iza akhada ma awhab asqada ma awjab diyor. Bu fıkhi bir kaidedir. Vermediği şeyi onun şeyini sualı olmaz. Şeyi düşmüş olur.
And that is a principle in the Islamic jurisprudence, that one needs to meet the requirements in order to fulfill something. If Allah Almighty did not give you certain means in order to enable you to fulfill those requirements, then Allah Almighty will not require you to fulfill those tasks. If Allah Almighty did not endow you and bestow the possibilities and the means to perform something, then you are not in the obligation to fulfill it.
Emir düşmüş olur. Mesela bu deliler içinde olabilir. Adam delidir. onun aklı yok. Artık ona ne namaz vaciptir, ne oruç vaciptir.
Also, if you have not been granted a sound mind, then you are also not held responsible for praying or for fasting.
Mükellef değil yani onu.
If you have not been favored with a sound mind, then you are not responsible.
Bu hac meselesi de parası olmayan, sıhhat yerinde olmayan için o da düşmüş olur onun üstünden.
And likewise, if you have not been favored with health and with wealth in order to fulfill the Hajj, then you are not held responsible if you do not do so.
Farzlığı düşmüş olur. Yapamayınca o sorulmaz ondan.
And if you therefore do not fulfill the conditions in order to fulfill that obligation, without you fulfilling those requirements, you will not be held responsible.
Ama her mani olmadan varsa onu yapması lazım insan.
But if there is no excuse, if you do fulfill all requirements in order to fulfill the obligation of performing Hajj, then you are responsible and you will be held accountable if you do not do so.
Dediğimiz gibi maniler de çok var şimdi. Yasaktır, ya şuydu buydu, bu kadar insan alırız, bu kadar kabul ederiz deyince o farza insanın üstünden düşmüş olur.
Unfortunately today, there are many obstacles that even if one has the means and the health and the wealth to perform the Hajj, one can still not perform the Hajj because of certain prohibitions. Or for example, there are quotas that are preset which hinder people from performing the Hajj. And if one is unable to fulfill the obligation of performing the Hajj because of factors which one cannot influence, then one will not be held accountable because one cannot influence them.
Öteki türlü gitmesi lazım.
But if one has the means and one has the possibilities and one can overcome those obstacles, then one has to fulfill that obligations.
Allah herkese nasip etsin. Çünkü
May Allah Almighty enable us all to perform the Hajj.
Öyle bir yolculuk herkesin ruhaniyeti için fazilet, bereket.
The journey of performing the Hajj will benefit you. It will benefit your spirituality.
Sevap kazanması için
It is the means for you to gain blessings.
Lazımdır.
And it is important in order to receive those divine favors. It is through this journey of Hajj that one can obtain those divine blessings.
Mescid-i Haram'da bir namaz kılmak 100.000 namaz kılmak gibidir yani.
And to perform one prayer at the Masjid al-Haram is worth, compared to other places, 100,000 prayers.
Bir namaz neredeyse bir ömür gibi kıldığım bütün namazlar kadar fazileti oluyor.
100,000 prayers. That is like having prayed throughout one's lifetime. Performing one prayer at the Masjid al-Haram has the value of having prayed throughout one's entire life.
Peygamber Efendimiz'i ziyaret etmek.
And then there is the occasion of visiting the beloved Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him.
Onun huzurunda durmak,
to stand in his presence, peace be upon him.
Başka bir güzellik,
And that is yet another beautiful occasion.
Başka bir fayda. Bir de 1000 namaz, her namaz, orada kılınan namaz 1000 namaza bedeldir.
And every prayer performed there is tantamount to 1,000 prayers.
Sevabı, fazileti, her şeyi.
Everything is multiplied. The blessings, the rewards, the benefits you will be gaining, all the worship you perform there is multiplied.
Allah hepimize nasip etsin.
May Allah Almighty grant that divine favor to all of us.
Gidemeyenler de inşallah nasip olsun inşallah.
And may those who have not yet been able to perform the Hajj, may they be able to do so.
Amin Allah tawfik. El Fatiha.